Shall we begin?
Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.
Is that all you got?
Let's begin now.
What up? Oh, for sure.
messenger. Kill the messenger. Kill the messenger.
In my dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks. Doing hard time for these WikiLeaks. Trying to bring the truth out, man, it only gets you weak. And then they gag you, you don't get to speak. And when you get the leak, they try to hit the leak. The masters of the masses, they want this shit to street. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Play on the regular.
You kill the messenger.
Free speech is the freedom of press. Take your deepest, darkest secrets, never leave them unsaid. If I'm a thief, then I'm a thief for the people you dread. The people want the red, while the blue you keep them in bed. Seeking the sheep, keep them asleep, deceiving the weak. Keep seeking the leech till you cease, and I see your defeat. Until I'm deceased underneath, I freeze a red sheep, become a dead man. Then I hit the switch and release. Goldman Sachs is Goldman Sachs is your creditor.
Kill the messenger.
And outside my window a figure quickly creeps. They dark as night like some motherfucking chimney sweeps. Whiskey what my Mickey keeps, dying in my kidneys weak. Silence of my risky tweets, what the grand jury seeks. I'm wanting peace, like 7 years in Tibet. Now rest in peace, like 7 years under threat. Cause I've released 7 vaults, they upset. They ended the rape sentence, but the US still insists to rest. I guess it's a sin to take the truth and disseminate. MLK to Gandhi, take him and eliminate. And I don't say I'm great, just wanna say what's fake. But if they kill me, a million others will take my place. The CIA's post like a knife the sharpest. All hypocrisy, lies, and heartless. They want to stop me, my life, make my heart quit. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. Cause democracy dies in the darkness. You kill the messenger.
You kill the messenger.
Democracy dies in the darkness.
Darkness.
Hi everyone, how's it going? Good to see you all. Hello everybody in the chat. Hello Freethinker, Trudy, David Simpson, Rupert Fellows. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me for this catch up. I was just finishing a little thing, little message for you all here. That story's died a death, hasn't it? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It really is. There is no media. We have no fourth estate. There really is. We really haven't. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who supports this show, all the patrons, everybody who sends me money on PayPal and Bitcoin, etc. every now and then. I can't do this without you. There are things afoot on YouTube which pretty much are guaranteeing that all independent media is going to be killed off as soon as they possibly can, which, given the state of affairs of the world at the moment and their war on information in the West, the war on truth, if you could call it that if you want, yeah, it looks like YouTube are going to start kicking us all off. They've updated their rules, so as of, I think it's beginning of January, could be in December. Yeah, I think it's December it's implemented. Yeah, they can basically just kick you off YouTube if you're not viable, not corporately viable. I think those are the words they call. Basically, if you're not advertiser friendly. So they will use that to obviously kick off anybody who is talking about things that are anti-establishment, you can guarantee that that's going to ramp up. We've already seen the silencing of any pro-Palestinian voices, etc. When everybody was chomping at the bit for Alex Jones to be kicked off, I sat there and I was screaming, don't do this, don't cheer this on, you might hate him, it doesn't matter, they'll come back, it'll be come back. He's the canary in the coal mine. I remember saying that at the time, he's the canary at the coal mine. If you cheer this on, if you allow it to happen, the censorship will come and it'll come down on the left, and that is exactly what's happened. Exactly what's happened. You look at my views now compared to 6 months ago. You know, I'm even more well known now than I am 6 months ago, and I'm getting a third of the views that I was. Less than a third. So that'll give you some idea as to how bad the censorship is. So if you do support the show, thanks very much. I can't do it without you. I don't get hardly any money from YouTube, and to be honest, I think I'm even going to just turn off the advertisements, because what's the point in carrying on with it if they're going to be kicking me off soon anyway. Bring on Kim. Kim.com. There's a social network that he's launching called Kim, K.im. We need it quick. We really do, because Twitter and Google, they're going to get rid of us. They're doing their best already to kick us off. They've already obviously suppressed us and our voices. I mean, how big would some of the independent media shows, for instance, how many subscribers would this channel have if I hadn't faced the suppression that I had in the last 4 or 5 months? You know, think about it. I haven't increased my subscribers since June. You know, get a letter from Julian Assange, all of a sudden I stopped appearing in the Google algorithm on YouTube. It's strange, isn't it? It's almost like the two things are connected. It's almost like they're trying to silence independent voices. They are, and that's why it's important that you support us, because without you, we cannot be. Thanks very much for your support. Even if it's $1, $2, £1, £2, whatever it is a month, it really helps. If you can't support me financially, I understand, you know, £1, £2, it doesn't sound a lot, but things are really tight. I understand that. They're tight for me, they're tight for everybody. But I mean, if you can't afford it monetarily, share it. You know, share my stuff. Speak to friends and family about me, you know, about the unfairness in the media, about how the media are lying to you. We'll have instances of that tonight. In a really important time. Remember, we're a month away from our election. Today. It's a month today. So, thanks very much for all your support. Go to gordondimmack.com, find out ways you can support me. I am having a bit of a journalism drive at the moment, because it's a month until the general election, and I want to ask these politicians, I want to ask Boris Johnson, and I want to ask Jeremy Corbyn some questions. So I need to know where they're going to be, and go and find them and stick a camera in their face. And then obviously I'll need you to help me to do that. I'll get to that later in the show. Right. Let's have a quick update on the situation with Julian Assange. I want to thank everybody who wrote to their MP, urging them to support Chris Williamson's early day motion that he put forward, that he tabled. Tabled in the UK is different to the US, by the way. For the politicians who table a motion over here, that means they put it forward. If it gets tabled in America, that means they've withdrawn it. So just to tell you, there is a difference in that terminology. But yeah, Chris Williamson tabled an early day motion, and I've been asking people to write to their politicians to support it. I had a live stream last week where I read out all the responses that I've had so far. I've had more since. I've had about another 10, and they're following the same sort of lines as they did in that live stream. If you remember from the live stream, I demonstrated how the Tories were pretty much all on message. Certainly the Tories that are up for re-election, they're all on message, they're all on point, and they're all giving very little away. But obviously I gave little pointers on what you could say to them when they do write to you with this bog standard reply. There's a reply that they're sending out. There's 3 paragraphs in it that pretty much are word for word that the Tories are all sending out. Now, the Labour MPs, as I demonstrated in that live stream, they're all over the place. They haven't got a clue with regards to the facts of the case, it seems. So we need to keep the pressure upon them and educate them. reply to them whenever they bring up Sweden, and get to the facts. Remember, the facts of this Swedish extradition case. Well, let's remind you of what Nils Melzer. Nils Melzer is the Special Rapporteur on Torture, United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture. He said this: Assange was imprisoned for more than 6 years under the permanent sword of Damocles of extradition to the United States, and was constantly threatened and humiliated by the media, politicians, and after the change of government in Ecuador, increasingly by Ecuadorian staff, the embassy staff. As a direct consequence, he now suffers from severe chronic anxiety, neurological symptoms, and post-traumatic stress syndrome. That's Nils Melzer, the United Nations Rapporteur on Torture. These are things that you can really pressure your politicians with. Here's something else he said as well. In the end, it finally dawned on me that I had been blinded by propaganda and that Assange had been systematically slandered to divert attention from the crimes he exposed. Once he had been dehumanised through isolation, ridicule and shame, just like the witches we used to burn at the stake. It was easy to deprive him of his most fundamental rights without provoking public outrage worldwide, and thus a legal precedent is being set through the back door of our own complacency, which in the future can and will be applied just as well to disclosures by The Guardian, The New York Times and ABC News. Of course, this sets a precedent. This sets a precedent that allows the United States to just plump themselves in, just to extend their red, white and blue arm of justice, so to speak, into your country and pluck out somebody who's not even one of your nationals and has never even set foot in America, and just say, yeah, we're gonna throw you away for 175 years because you prove our war criminals are war criminals, and we can't have that. We can't have people telling the truth. It sets a massive precedent. This is the biggest threat to press freedom the world has ever seen. This is what you need to keep bringing up to your MPs when you reply to them. Keep the pressure on. United States wants to make an example of Assange in jail, says Nils Melzer. This is a professional. This is the specialist. This is United Nations specialist. And our government has just refused to even open an investigation, which is the bare minimum that we're supposed to do when the United Nations Rapporteur releases such a damning report. We're meant to at least open an investigation, and we're not even doing that. So get the pressure on them. Get the pressure on the Labour politicians to pressure the Conservatives to do it. We need to keep the pressure on. We need to keep persisting. Remember, Assange, let's face it, he's a genius, and he's a genius that after 7 years of being in isolation, in arbitrary detention, and our year of being in total isolation with no access to internet, etc., and then being thrown in jail. This is somebody who is suffering psychological torture. I can't think properly, he said when he was in that stand in the magistrates. Assange fights back tears and struggles to say his own name as he appears in court over the US extradition. These are things that our MPs, they can't deny. When we've been torturing people and the United Nations special rapporteurs on torture are coming out and saying just that. Our government hasn't got a leg to stand on, so it does beg the question, why aren't Labour banging away on this? This is a home run. This is an open goal. Why are they also misinformed? But they are, as I proved in my live stream and the letters from them. I have got more, and it's more of the same. So keep the pressure on. Keep the pressure on. Keep saying that this is in violation of United Nations rules. Excuse me. Remember, Sweden are refusing to even look into the handling of the Assange case, to explain why they keep reopening this case. They won't explain it to Nils Melzer. They won't provide any information that is requested, and they won't engage in any constructive dialogue. Why is that? We can keep the pressure on. We need to keep highlighting these things. Get your MPs on board now. Withhold your vote from them. make it sure, make it known, you're withholding your vote from them until they come out in favour of Julian Assange. And not only that, but your campaign against them. Become a pain in the arse for them. We're 1 month from an election. They're going to be doing anything to get your vote. Get them on board with this. Withhold your vote until they change their name. Educate them as well, because I'm sure that, you know, these Labour politicians aren't just spouting lies. You know, I'm sure they're just uneducated on what the facts are. So educate them on what the facts are. The media, remember this. Make a point of this. The media are not covering this properly. They are not telling the truth. As the Canary point out in this article, coverage of Assange's court appearance shows what a sorry state the media is in. This is the biggest threat to press freedom ever, and they hardly covered it in the media, and when they did cover it, it was all about Assange and rape again, even though there have been no charges, as I keep saying over and over and over again. Keep the pressure on, because this man's life is at stake, and he's not doing this to be a martyr. He's not doing this for attention. He's not doing this for his health, obviously. He's doing this for you. He's doing this for your children. Because without an operating fourth estate, we have got no chance. The CIA and the GCHQ, they'll have the keys to the bowels of history, to writing history, which you can guarantee then, therefore, history is going to be bollocks. It's going to be untrue. We cannot let the CIA win this information war. Because let's face it, GCHQ, Integrity Initiative, they're not waging war on Russia and Syria. They're waging war on us, their own people. They're lying to us. They're lying to you. They're lying to their own MPs. Make sure they're aware of that in the letters and keep the pressure on. It really is important. Get these MPs on board, as I said. And a great way to do that. So get the MPs on board if you can. There are other ways you can support Julian, and wiseupaction.info, which is a website that's run by Emmy Butlin, who I have interviewed many times on this channel, who's a brilliant Assange supporter and quite honestly one of my favourite people in the world. I've got to be honest, she's just a wonderful woman. She's the sort of person you want in your corner. She has started an action, if you like, a right in action to try and get the hearing moved from Belmarsh Magistrates Court. Now, one of the things that came out of that court appearance that I covered at Westminster was the judge had moved the hearings, the full extradition hearing, to Belmarsh. And her reasoning for that is that Belmarsh has more or better facilities for the press. However, there are only 3 seats in the public gallery. 3. The biggest case affecting press freedom, the biggest threat to press freedom ever, and they're trying to do it in the court with only 3 people in the public gallery. You know, like I said at the time, I remember when Emmy Butlin told me this outside the court. I said, democracy dies in darkness, and this is the British judicial system turning out the lights on it. Well, Eileen Chubb from Compassion in Care and The Whistler has written to District Judge Vanessa Baraitser to raise the alarm that her proposal to move Julian Assange's US extradition court hearing from Westminster Magistrates Court to Belmarsh Magistrates Court is against the public interest. Excuse me. I've been left with a horrible cough after I recovered from the flu. Anyway. Let's stand up for our constitutional rights and for the right to open justice through open courts. Let's follow her excellent example. Yeah, let's lobby the court. Let's lobby Judge Baraitser or Magistrate Baraitser, whatever her name is, to reverse her ridiculous decision and have it in a court with more than 3 seats in the public gallery. This is the letter that she wrote, that Eileen wrote, to District Judge Vanessa Baratza, she wrote, as a campaigner to protect vulnerable people from abuse by protecting whistleblowers, I am all too aware of the harm done to individuals in court settings which have been closed to the public. For this reason, I write to voice my serious concerns regarding the case of Julian Assange. Your proposals that the case should be heard in the Belmarsh courts amount to holding the trial in private. These courts have the capacity to hold 3 members of the public. The fact that this proposal was made at all is alarming. No kidding it is. It is a well-established international principle that quote, justice has to be seen in order to be done. Correct. Any court setting that does not reasonably accommodate anticipated numbers of the public is in fact a closed court. Here, here. Eileen. Not only should this trial be held at Westminster Magistrates Court, but it should be held in court number 1, the largest court, in order to accommodate at least a percentage of those members of the public and press who will wish to attend. To do otherwise would without doubt not meet the criteria of a fair hearing. Yours sincerely, Eileen Chubb. And then that's where to write to the courts, westminster.mc at hmcts.gov.uk and South London MC. Let me just quickly copy those and put them in the chat. There you go. Those are those 2 links for you to email. For you to email and request a different court. There's also a big list on that article by Wise Up Action. I shall put that in the chat as well for you to go and. There's a load of people there for you to CC in on your emails. So CC all them in. And yeah, we'll see what action we can get and whether we can get this hearing moved from Belmarsh to number 1 court at Westminster, where there is a larger gallery for the public. I'm hoping that I will be there at that hearing, wherever it is. I'm going to apply for an NUJ card, I've been told I've got to apply for, and I'm going to try and be there. But please write your letter. I will be writing my email to them tonight, I promise, to try and get some pressure on them to change the court. Remember, they tried to have the last appearance in a smaller court. We petitioned the court and got it changed to a larger court, so more people could get in. So this does work. So please, if you can, send an email requesting that the extradition hearings in February be moved back to Westminster Magistrates. It's really important. We cannot let the judicial system of the United Kingdom be taken over by, let's face it, the American deep state. Democracy dies in darkness. Let's not let them turn out the lights. You know, they said, the Judge Baratza said that they were moving the hearing to Belmarsh because it's better for the press. Bollocks. I covered that. I saw they were shit scared at the size of the crowds. That's what they were scared at. This is why they had so many dummy vans going in and out. If you watch my stream, you would see I was running around trying to get them, and only roughly managed to get him coming out. We don't even know how he got in to that court. So they don't like the fact that there's going to be larger crowds of people, and in February you can guarantee there's going to be a much larger crowd because it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Keep the pressure on. Momentum is building. It really is. Remember, I think they're moving that to Belmarsh because not because of the media, but because of the crowds are getting bigger, and they don't want his van surrounded outside the court and a problem. Remember, when I was covering that hearing outside the magistrates' court, there were a lot more people there this time, and the police were a lot more antagonistic. There was one police officer who tried to get the Rupley guy to move his van, and the Rupley guy just said no, so he decided to walk over the road and just stand right in front of one of their supporters, I've forgotten his name, the lungs of the demonstration, Melvin, just stood right in front of his loudspeaker, started bashing his loudspeaker out the way. I went over and I stood up for him. None of the other press did, obviously, but I went over and I stood up for him. And then there was the coppers coming to the front, outside the front, trying to get them to move, trying to get the supporters to move into a corner. And the supporters just went, no, we're not moving. I remember Maxine just saying, no. And the police didn't know what to do. They were like, oh shit, we're not used to this. We can't control this. I think that's the reason that they moved it. So let's put some pressure on. Momentum is building, remember. Momentum is building. I've covered... Momentum's building on the Assange case. That's for certain. Momentum is building on with the Assange support. Should I say that again? Because this is going to be another video. I'm going to say that again. Momentum is building with the Assange support. I've covered a lot of the events in the last year up and down the country, especially in London. And support is building in this country and elsewhere. Julian Assange, remember, is Australian. And, excuse me, this cough is terrible. He is Australian, and a few weeks ago, the major papers in Australia all blacked out their front pages, or redacted their front pages in protest at the anti-media stance that's been taken. I think one of those papers, I forget which one now, I think it might have been the Herald, although don't quote me on that. They were raided by the authorities, looking for details of a whistleblower, and they're coming out in protest against the anti-journalistic practices in Australia. So they're starting to have enough. They're starting to have had enough. The newspapers have, and it's about time too. Remember, this case of Julian Assange, as I keep saying, is the biggest threat to press freedom the world has ever seen. Which is one of the reasons why we can't allow the extradition hearing to be in Belmarsh prison with 3 people in the public gallery. So momentum is building. Yeah, so momentum is building, and you may remember there was a cross-party group of 11 MPs. Here we are. This is from the Sunday Morning Herald. This is a week or two ago. I mentioned this, that 11 federal MPs have joined forces to agitate for the Morrison government to intervene in the US attempts to extradite WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. One of those MPs, there he is, George Christensen, is asking to see Assange. Says Julian Assange is in a crazy situation, set to receive a request for a visit from George Christensen. Now, this was a week or two ago, so I'm not sure what has happened here, but I am sure he should get access. Australian politician, and Julian Assange is Australian. Remember, he's just plucked him out of the UK, an Australian out of the UK. Anyway, they're demanding to see him. So I'll keep people updated on this as to what will come of this meeting. But as you can see, things are starting to move. There's more we can do. Email your MP if you haven't already in this country. Ask them to support Chris Williamson's early day motion. Get them on record. Even if you're in another country, you can email your MP in another country. Remember, the German MPs, Heike Hansel, I think her name is a big supporter of Julian Assange, and in the Irish European, there are some MEPs as well who are big Assange supporters. Try and get as many on board as possible. If George Christensen's going to be asking for a visit, if you're leaving Australia, why not email more MPs and say why aren't you on board? We need to have we need to make this global, this campaign, for Julian Assange, and we haven't got that long. It's only 3 months now until the hearings. We've got work to do. Protest. If you can, protest. The protesters scaled the front of Parliament House, calling for the federal government to stop WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange being extradited to the United States. He was arrested, this guy was in Australia. There he is. But all of these things, the news cannot keep ignoring them. So do whatever you can to shine a light on this. The biggest threat to press freedom ever. And if you want your children to grow up knowing what is fact in the world, it's best not that we give the keys to writing history to the CIA and GCHQ. There's other ways you can support as well, of course. Go to defend.wikileaks.org. This is /live blog. I'll put the URL in the live chat for you to go and find out all of the events that are coming up that you can support. That's from the 11th of November. That's from yesterday. But you can see there were other things going on later on in the year on here. It is on that page, I promise you. There's I know that there's events coming up later this month. There's an art exhibition. There's the Free the Truth event down in London that I'll be going to. Go to as many as you can. Maybe arrange your own, but keep the pressure on. We need to keep the pressure on. We need to keep resisting, and we need to keep persisting. This man's life is at stake, and we've got to help him. There is one person who has been doing her best to help Julian Assange, and that is this lady, Pamela Anderson. Let me just show the picture here because, look at that. She's absolutely incredible. She really is incredibly beautiful. She's written a letter to Trump and Melania, and whilst I don't hold out much hope that this is going to get anything done, really, with regards to Julian Assange, anything like this, anything that shines a light on the situation that Julian Assange is in, is great. Anything that maybe gets another voice, another person on board, is fantastic. I won't read all this. I'll just put the link to the page in the chat so you can go and read it for yourself. But this is somebody who, Pamela Anderson, she's met Donald Trump. Here they are. There's pictures of them. Once upon a time, she said here. This event, I found out, I think this was a Playboy event back in 2005. Pamela Anderson was paid $500 a day to go to it. If you haven't got any friends, you can always buy them, I suppose, if you're a billionaire. Whilst I'm not holding out too much hope that this open letter that Pamela Anderson has written to President Trump will gain any traction, it's just extra little bits that might get one or two more people noticing, and you're just trying to create ripples in the pond to try and have some sort of effect down the line. There wasn't much media attention to this, though. And this is the only one that I could find, or one of the only ones. This is from Sputnik, and we're usually pretty good. Sputnik, this is what we're up against. This is a pretty good outlet with regards to Assange and support from Assange. They've been pretty accurate in their reporting. But look at this. So Julian Assange, an Australian citizen, is currently serving a 50-week jail term for skipping bail in 2012 to avoid being sent to Sweden, where he was wanted and charged of sexual assault, which he rejected as politically motivated. Sputnik, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're an organisation that's meant to be pro-Assange. You've reported on it so well in the past, but you're wrong. Julian Assange is an Australian citizen, yes, but he's not currently serving a 50-week jail term. He should have been released after half that. He should have been released in September. Julian Assange is now a political prisoner, Sputnik. You need to get your facts straight. And as for where he was wanted on charges of sexual assault, how many more times have you assholes in the media got to be told? How many more times have you got to be told? There have never, ever been any charges against Julian Assange in Sweden. Ever. Why is it a guy in a council flat in Wolverhampton on a budget of less than £1,000 a month can get this right, but media organisations with millions and millions and millions behind them and thousands of people working can't? Is it because they're doing it on purpose? I wouldn't suggest they're doing it on purpose here, but they can't even get that right. The one organisation that did pick it up as a story. That's what we're up against, folks. Like I say, I've not much hope that Pamela Anderson's letter to Donald Trump will do anything. I highly doubt that he will read it. There are no pictures. There's only that one picture at the top, although it's a very good one of a pretty lady, so it's got a chance he might look at it. But I think that's as far as he'll go. But that doesn't mean that you can't take a lead from Pamela Anderson. You could write to who's your favourite star, your favourite person in the public eye. Write to them, try to get a famous person on board to lend their weight and their voice with all their followers, etc. on Twitter and social media. Got to try all we possibly can to save this man's life. Because this is the biggest threat to press freedom ever, in the history of ever. And the fact that our media are not talking about it tells you all you need to know about the media and whether they're on your side or whether they're just public relations for the elite and the government. Well done, Pam. Give me a second, everyone. Just closing some tabs off. Clear up some memory. Not charges, allegations since dropped, I think. Allegations. There weren't even allegations from the women. The women have never alleged. They've never alleged he raped them. The women have never alleged he raped them. You know, you gotta keep hitting on these points. You know, remember this. The only evidence that we've seen is a ripped condom with nobody's DNA on it, which is impossible. A ripped condom and that came in the middle of multiple consensual sexual encounters between the two. An investigation that only ever gets reopened or rumours of it reopened whenever the case, comes up so that they can then put Julian Assange and rape in the headline. This is all it is. I question the existence of God when things like this happen, says Wayne 90079. So you should question the existence of God. Full stop. Not just when things like this happen. Yeah. All right. Hi everyone. We are right at this very moment Hi everyone, so right at this moment we're on the 12th of November as I'm recording this, so we are exactly 1 month away from the general election. As George Carlin says, I am sure after this election your life will improve immeasurably, immediately, as soon as it finishes. But today, yes, is 1 month away from our third election in 4 years in the United Kingdom. We do like democracy in this. An election that is already being called the Brexit election. This graphic was from Sky. Yeah, Sky are calling it the Brexit election.
I told you so. I told you so.
Sort of get out of the way then. So Sky are already calling this the Brexit election. Now, I haven't talked about Brexit too much in the last 3 or 4 weeks because I had enough of it, if you may recall. I've had enough of this. It's a waste of time me covering it. They're not going to give you Brexit. It's a waste of time. What's the point of me talking about it? You're not going to get it. You're not going to get Brexit. We're not going to leave on October the 31st. I've said it over and over and over, and I've been saying it quite often. They don't want to give you Brexit. I seem to remember saying it more than once or twice. I'd just like to say to everybody when I was saying they're not going to give you Brexit, you're not going to get it, you're not going to leave on October the 31st. To all those people who were saying that, no, Gordon, you're wrong, we really are going to leave this time. We really are. I'd just like to say this.
I told you so. 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 Now in French, je te l'ai dit. Oui, c'est ça, je te l'ai dit. You want some German out of me, huh? Ich hab's gesagt. Ja, das stimmt, ich hab gesagt. I told you so.
I took a few minutes there just to brag. Because you know what? I think I'm the only person in the bloody country who's got Brexit right so far. I really, really do. The entire so-called media, they're not the media, they're government and PR, the entire media were telling you that Boris is barreling towards Brexit and he's going to deliver Brexit on October the 31st and he's got this deal and he's going to be able to get it through. And I was there going, this way, that it's not going to happen. This is decided, it was already decided, it's not going to happen. And I've been proven right again. Why? Say it again. I'm sure you know it. Sure you know it off by heart now as to why we aren't going to leave. Because you can't have an in-out referendum without defining what out is first. Because if you don't define what out is first, you leave the door ajar for the powers that be to wrap Brexit up in a bunch of bureaucratic red tape and nonsense and keep it open and keep people arguing about it for years until we eventually have another referendum. And that's exactly what's happened. So for the next 25 days, getting off Brexit because this is about the election, remember? For the next 25 days... Oh, by the way, I've been saying for the last year that the second referendum will come in the form of an election. I've been saying for the last year the second referendum will come in the form of re-election.
I told you so. 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 I told you so.
The last year, I remember, I think it was on Jamal Thomas's The Progressive Soapbox that I said it first, and that was, I know, last year. So I've been saying that the second referendum will come in the form of election for a long time now. I've been proven right. I'm not one to crow about I was right a lot, but in this instance, give me a chance, give me a break, cut me some slack on it, because honestly, everybody else is wrong on it. Everybody else has been wrong on it. I am the only one who's been right time and time again. Remember my stance before the result of the last referendum, the morning that we voted. I voted Remain because you can't have an in-out referendum without defining what out is first, because otherwise you leave the door open for them to wrap it up in bureaucratic red tape, which is exactly what has happened. I'm the only one who's been right. Anyway, we're going to have this election. It's going to be the Brexit election according to Sky. And for the next 25 days, the Tories will find a magic money tree that they've been crowing about that Corbyn and Labour seem to have found. But they'll find that magic money tree and promise the world, which will include delivering Brexit. Hands up, anybody who thinks that if Boris Johnson is elected on the 12th of December, that he will deliver Brexit. Hands up, anybody who said that, who thinks that. You there in the back with your hand up there. I know there's one of you. Have you not listened to anything that I've just said? Have you not listened to anything that I've said in the last 2.5 years? You're not going to get Brexit. You don't have a democracy. Yeah, it sucks, I know. You don't have a democracy. To prove that you don't have a democracy, this election looks like it's going to be the tactical election. Everybody's going to be voting tactically, and there's going to be alliances all over the place. I mean, what's the point in having a parliamentary democracy where you've got more than two parties if everybody all backs one of the main two parties? The Tories and Boris Johnson will want this to all be about Brexit. That's the only thing that they are going to concentrate on. They'll obviously give you a load of promises that they'll be spending this, that and the other, but they won't. But that's all they're going to do for the next 5 days. They are going to try and make this all about Brexit. Now, Nigel Farage has already, as we found out yesterday or the day before, made a deal with them. Brexit Party won't be standing in any of the seats, the seats that Conservatives have already won. So he's made a deal not to stand in Tory seats. Now, I don't think that's a bigger deal, as some people say, because there's a fallacy with Farage and the Brexit voters in that people think that, yeah, he'll be creaming votes from Labour. It'll be both parties. If they stand in any of them, it'll be both parties. He'll hurt Labour just as much as Tories. There'll obviously be up and downs depending on individual, elections. But across the board, the Brexit Party will take as many votes from Labour as they will from the Conservatives. Labour, on the other hand, and Jeremy Corbyn, will be trying to make this about everything else other than Brexit, because their Brexit policy, as we know, as was highlighted on BBC Question Time, I think it was, with Fiona Bruce, where she caught out Emily Thornberry and said that she identified that Labour's Emily Thornberry's policy, Labour's policy will be to negotiate a deal and then have a referendum in which the Labour Party will vote against the deal that they have just negotiated. Which, it's not a great position to be in, because if you're in that position to start off with and you've already taken no deal off the table, you haven't got a bargaining chip with the EU, and as we've seen, the EU are not going to be negotiating in good faith. After all, they don't want the United Kingdom to leave the EU. So Labour will be trying everything possible to make this election about their policies and their values. Now, when I say everything possible, it seems that is obviously apart from standing up for Julian Assange and the free press, because they've said more words about Owen Jones getting roughed up outside of a pub than they have about the best publisher in the history of the world being thrown in Guantanamo Bay. So it seems that that's off the table, which does beg the question, what the hell is going on? What have they been told? They should be beating Boris Johnson over the head every single day with this. This is Boris Johnson wrapping up a publisher, the Fourth Estate, and sending him off to Donald Trump. Our media are saying Donald Trump's fascist. Yet they haven't got a problem with our government wrapping a publisher up in red tape and throwing him to the wolves, the United States deep state. It's puzzling. It's infuriating that they're not saying more. You'll also notice that there is rumours over the last 24 hours that the Remain parties are going to do deals with Labour And, you know, obviously even the Lib Dems, etc., and stand down in certain areas. You'll get Greens standing down in certain areas and Lib Dems standing down in certain areas, Plaid Cymru, etc. You may even get Labour standing down in certain areas just to try and coalesce the Remain vote, which is why I say this is going to be the Brexit election. And you might even get the Lib Dems, you know, being supported in some areas. So that's the way I see it going over the next month. Now, at the moment, the polls, this is the first time I've mentioned them, and it's going to be the last the last time I mention them in the next month, because I believe polls are there to direct opinion rather than inform it. So I'm not going to be mentioning any polls on this channel for the next month. But what I will say is that polls, so they say at the moment, are putting Boris Johnson ahead. Depending on the polls, you know, the reason I'm not going to be concentrating on them too much is because they're always wrong. Let's face it, the last few years they've been totally wrong. It's better to actually just look at it yourself and figure it out and come up with a guess yourself. And what I find is my guesses are usually more accurate than the polls. I can see Boris Johnson is ahead at the moment. Corbyn has lost support in the Midlands, where I am, and in the North. Support that he desperately needs to keep. These are seats that he desperately needs to hold on to. He's got about 260 seats, 262 I think it is at the moment. He needs to hold on to those seats. And at the moment, he's lost support. So he won't get those 262 seats. Now, Labour's strategy in this election is to move it, like I say, away from Brexit. They're going to be moving it as far away from Brexit as possible because, like I say, their Brexit policy is basically to wave a white flag by the look of it and going back on their promise in their last election manifesto to respect the result. And that will not go down well in the Midlands and the North. He's got his work cut out for him as Jeremy Corbyn. However, he is a great campaigner, as he proved in the last election. He closed a 20-point gap, you might remember, or almost it was, on Theresa May. Now, well, last time he was up against a chicken who wouldn't debate him. This time it's worth remembering, even if he has lost support and he is behind, and 10 points behind or whatever it is that he's behind, it is worth remembering who he's up against this time, because this time he's up against an imbecile. Not a chicken, sure. Well, some would say he's a chicken. Yes, he is a chicken. I seem to remember him running away from a question that Emily Thornberry was going to ask him on Palestine in the House of Commons last year. I digress. But he is an imbecile. You'll have no doubt seen this. This is him on Remembrance Sunday. This is, what is it, 2 days ago. So you can see this is him looking scruffy, walking up to the cenotaph and just going to chuck that down backwards. And there was a big furore about it anyway, that he wasn't showing respect, etc. Now, I personally couldn't care a crap about this, I really couldn't, but do you remember last year? I feel like this is Groundhog Day, because last year I remember Jeremy Corbyn won a coat. He wore an anorak, didn't he? Do you remember? The media went nuts over this. Every year it seems to be, some furore around the Remembrance Sunday. Somebody didn't wear a fucking poppy and they need to be killed or something like that. Anyway, what happened on the back of that is nothing short of atrocious. Because I say that, we're up against an imbecile and Corbyn's up against an imbecile, but that's only going to count if the media actually show Boris Johnson being an imbecile. And in this case, they didn't. Look at this clip. This is from the BBC segment about that Remembrance Day parade. Just look at this. Look what they did. Look up that. They cut in. You can see that's the beginning. There it is. They cut in footage from the year before where he had a totally different colour wreath and he was smarter looking to make him look better. There's only one way they could have done that, and that is on purpose. That can't have been a mistake. You know, the BBC have come out and said that it was a mistake. That was all. Just the same as it was a mistake that they said that World Trade Centre 7 had collapsed. What was it, half an hour before it did? That was a mistake. Their mistakes only ever go one way, don't they, in the BBC? Their reporting. When it comes to the politics, their mistakes only ever go one way. And that's pro-Tory, pro-establishment, anti-Jeremy Corbyn, anti-socialist. We need to switch off these media organisations. And we need to urge as many people as possible to. They are not the press. We are in independent media. So that's a gaffe by Boris Johnson. And you know what? It hasn't been the first one in the last week. And it won't be the last. This is him a few days before. Northern Ireland's got a great deal. It's got a great deal. You keep free movement. You keep access to the single market. No, you don't. This is him on his own deal.
Trade and peace and everything else, right? But so when you come out of the EU customs union, which is what we've done, you have to have some way of checking that goods that might attract a tariff going from the United Kingdom into Ireland pay that tariff. If there is to be a tariff, the only place you can
Do you think that's water?
do it, if you don't do it at the border, is at the border in Northern Ireland. There will not be tariffs or checks on goods coming from GB to I that are not going on to Ireland. That's the whole point. And the great thing that's been misunderstood about this is there will not be checks. There will not be checks. I speak as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and a passionate unionist. There will not be checks on goods going from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. Because we're the government of the United Kingdom and we will not institute or implement or enact such checks. And the idea that Tato crisps from Tandragee Castle are going to be by some process, it's just nonsense. So actually Northern Ireland has got a great deal.
It reminds me of when I think it was the Tokyo Olympics, because the London Olympics was after, and at the end of the closing ceremony of the Tokyo Olympics, they were doing some stuff to promote the London Olympics, which was 4 years later, and Boris Johnson was over there in Tokyo and he was doing some speech, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was in America watching Boris Johnson make this speech, and you had Arnold Schwarzenegger making fun of Boris Johnson, stuttering and stammering all over the place. This is our Prime Minister in the United Kingdom.
It's got a great deal.
He doesn't understand his own deal.
To the single market, but you also have, as it says in the deal, unfettered access to GB, and so we can also come out and do free trade. The only reason they gave us that deal, by the way, was because they were at the back of their minds. They were still worried that we would come out without a deal, and even though they could see what the Ben Act was doing to us, and they could see how difficult it was, they weren't quite sure whether the UK government was going to be sufficiently, irrational as they saw.
Sufficiently, irrational.
As to come out with. I think in the end we got a great deal, and Corbyn, to get back to my point, Corbyn would chuck that deal away, go off and negotiate his own deal. Which, do you know what he wants to do? As far as I understand Labour policy, as far the only sort of flotsam.
He's there, but I mean that is our Prime Minister. You can see the reason I show that. He doesn't exactly inspire people. When he talks, he only loses support. Whereas Corbyn, when he talks, he only gains support. So this election is going to be closer than people are saying. And I've been saying it for months now, what is going to happen. But Boris Johnson is a blundering buffoon. And his buffoonery is why Corbyn is still in this race. And Boris's tendency to make huge gaffes like that, and Corbyn's good campaigning ability or excellent campaigning ability is why that this race is still wide open. Now, remember, Corbyn's already said to the press, just all you've got to do is report on us in our own words. And that's what he's going to try and put his hat on. And that he'll try and speak to people who are hurting and promise them policies that will change their lives. So, that all said and done, that's pretty much the state. I haven't mentioned the Lib Dems, so I'm going to now, because I'm going to give you some sort of preliminary predictions as to what's going to happen in a month's time. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. The Lib Dems, I think, will make gains. I think they're only on about 17 seats now, although they might be up to about 30 with all the Tories that they've gained. They've got seats. I think that the Lib Dems are going to gain seats. I think that they may even get up to the same levels that they were in the last 5 years. Well, they had 50. I think at one stage they had 56 seats. They certainly might get over 50 seats, just based on their stance that they are a Remain. You know, that's where they're putting their hat on. That's where they're putting their hat. They're laying their hat on their Remain stance, their Brexit stance. Jo Swinson is a Tory, though. You've got to always remember that. I've done a video about it. Jo Swinson is a Tory. If you vote for the Lib Dems, you are basically voting for Maggie Thatcher, in my opinion. But I do think that they will make gains. Similarly, I think the SNP will clean up in Scotland. I think the gains that the Conservatives, that Ruth Davidson oversaw in the last election, those were seats that the Conservatives won that they did not expect. It was a total surprise that they won so many seats in Scotland. And that basically gave them enough seats to form a minority government with the DUP. Without those seats in Scotland, they wouldn't have been able to. And I certainly don't think they're going to be holding on to all of those in this upcoming election. The SNP will clean up in Scotland again, just as they did a couple of elections ago. And the Tories will be bounced out, losing the seats that got them into power. So, the Tories, I think, are going to lose seats. But so are Labour. I think more independents are going to win. I certainly think George Galloway will win in West Brom, and I've got a good feeling about Chris Williamson in Derby North. And then we come to the jokers in the pack, which is the Brexit Party and Nigel Farage. I have seen some people predicting that they're going to win 100 seats, and I've seen some people predicting that they're going to win none, the Brexit Party. Here's my theory on it. I think that they will take as much votes off Labour as they will off Conservatives. Well, they're not standing in the Conservative seats that they won last time, remember, but that makes no difference. They're obviously going to be standing in other seats. Now, they're trying to broker a deal where the Tories don't stand in Brexit Party seats, where they're going after Labour marginals, if you like. Now, whether that happens, I don't know. But even if it does happen, I can just see more deals being done by the Remain parties. It's almost like this whole thing has been set up so that the House of Commons will be deadlocked after it. Which means that I don't believe in the election in a month that any party will be able to get a majority on their own for sure. I certainly don't think any party is going to be able to get 325 or whatever it is seats to be able to get a working majority. So then it's all about whether they can get enough seats to form a coalition with somebody else. I don't think the Brexit Party are going to be big players in that government. I really don't. I think maybe they will win a handful of seats. If you look back to UKIP, look how popular UKIP were and look how many seats they won. Very few. If you look back over all the elections, I think he only won 1 or 2 seats. I think it was 1 or 2 seats. And I can see the same thing happening with the Brexit Party as well. It's not just about Brexit in this country, and I think people they've had enough of it. You know, they're hurting too. They're hurting. Certainly the people I see, the people I speak to, I ask them about Brexit, and they're just, oh, whatever. Just give me a job. That's what they care about more. So I can see Corbyn gaining in the polls. I can see the Tories losing. I can see both of them losing seats, though, compared to what they were on the last election. Meaning, I hate to do this to you, because I have my audience know that I have a habit of my predictions coming true. But a few months ago, I did a video about Jo Swinson, and I ended that video by saying that she wasn't so much of a yellow Tory as the physical embodiment and reincarnation of Margaret Thatcher. I said that she's an awful person, and she is. She's a Liberal Democrat, remember, and she votes more in line with the Tory party than 75% of the Tory party. Just think about that. And I said a few months ago in my video that if our political landscape over the last 3 years is anything to go by, I said that Margaret Thatcher, Jo Swinson, would probably be our Deputy Prime Minister by the end of the year. And you know what? I've been right about Brexit all along. Scarily right. And I'm really hoping I'm wrong on this one. I really am. Because she's an awful person. But I can really see that by the end of the year, one of the most powerful people, before the election's out, one of the most powerful people in the political landscape in this country will be Jo Swinson. And if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will. Now, Nicola Sturgeon will obviously have something to say about that. She will have, I think, as many seats as the Lib Dems up there with the SNP. So there's just as much chance of the SNP doing a deal with Jeremy Corbyn as there is the Lib Dems doing a deal with the Conservatives and managed to get in a coalition. Honestly, I can see a situation where even if Labour get 250 seats and the Tories get 250, I can see a situation where neither party will have enough seats, even going into coalition with another party, to get over the threshold of 50%. I predicted on Fault Lines about a month ago. I can see, if you look at the political landscape in Europe and what's happened in Europe with left parties collapsing and Conservatives collapsing, and a lurch to right-wing politics and a lurch over to the left, and you know what you end up with all across Europe is coalitions of chaos in government. You know, nobody can govern with their own party anymore in Europe. They all have to govern with a coalition of other parties. And that's exactly what I can see happening in this country. And that's why I think that there's a bloody good chance that Jo Swinson will be our Deputy Prime Minister by the end of the year. And I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I'm going to go into the election more over the coming week. Obviously, I've been doing a lot on Assange this last week or so. I'm going to be doing more videos on what to expect with the election, and also I need a schedule of where these politicians are going to be. Please, if anybody has got a schedule of where these politicians, where Corbyn and Boris Johnson, whatever, is going to be on this campaign trail, please let me know. Please. Boris Johnson was in Wolverhampton yesterday, and I didn't even know. I didn't know. Was it Sunday? I think Sunday. I wasn't here anyway, but I didn't even know Boris Johnson was in my hometown. I need to find out where they are, because I need to get there and I need to stick a camera in their face and I need to start asking them the questions that are, well, governmental PR in the mainstream media don't. I've got to go and stick a camera in these people in these people's faces. Just bear me a second, everybody. I just want to check where I am. I think I've got another one loaded in here. I have. Oh, Al. Come on in. How's it going, mate? Hey? You've been good. You want to go out there? Can you go and lie down for a bit? Go and lie down while I do the story. Come on. Go and lie down. That's it. Lie down. Lie down. Lie down. Good girl. Okay. Hi, everybody. We got some news in the last week. Some big news this is as well. Because this is from the Associated Press. Iran's president says a new oil field in the south has been discovered with an estimated 50 billion barrels of crude oil. That's huge. If you think Venezuela's entire oil reserves, and they are the biggest in the world, yeah, they're bigger than Saudi Arabia, but Venezuela's are the biggest oil reserves in the world. I wonder if that's got anything to do with the United States trying to oust their president. Anyway, yeah, I think there's something like 297 billion barrels underneath Venezuela. That's an extra 50 billion in Iran that Iran have found. Or, as I put it, Iran just discovered 50 billion barrels of American oil. One of my best tweets ever. I've got to show this because the comments on this tweet are brilliant. They really are. The you know, the facade is, it's the truth is out there, you know, everybody knows. If I was Iran, I would undiscover that as soon as possible before democracy is delivered to them on a missile. You know, freedom and democracy incoming. I do. I love Twitter. It's the reason why I'm still on Twitter, this is. There you go, look at that. American geologists looking for oil. Right. This is the best one. For me, I'm with WikiLeaks said, you know what, Giant Meteor 2020, just end it already. Looking at the state of the world, honestly, that's a pretty good option, I think. You know, just end it. Oh dear. 50 billion barrels of American oil. What they've found. Expect regime change efforts in Iran to be ramped up over the coming months now they've found that. Come on, mate. Okay. I think that's it for today, everyone. I've got nothing else I want to talk about. I do want to talk about this, actually. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave this. I'm going to do a video about this one. I might do a live stream tomorrow. Hillary Clinton says Britain's failure to publish the report into allegations of Russian meddling in UK politics is shameful. You've probably seen there's a report that Boris Johnson there's a report about Russian meddling in the Brexit referendum that Boris Johnson has suppressed until after the election, and everybody is drawing conclusions into it. This is Alex Tiffany, who's a great reporter, by the way. He says, why is nobody talking about the US Senate concentrating on a photo of Boris Johnson with whom they allege is a Russian agent? Alex, you're wrong, mate. They're alleging he's a Russian agent. Yes, they're doing it, but they're doing it ironically. They're taking the piss. That's Devin Nunes doing that. And he was taking the piss because that was in the Mueller report that this Joseph Mifsud, who was in that picture with Boris Johnson, who, by the way, that picture... Joseph Mifsud very well might have just been standing next to him and Boris Johnson never even said hello for all we know. So, but he's Western intelligence. He's not Russian intelligence, Alex. I've got to do a video about it. I've got to go into it because there's a lot that we don't know that's in the report, but there's some that we do. One of the chief witnesses in that report is Christopher Steele, who, you know, is at the centre of the Russiagate stuff and was friends with old Sergei Skripal, was associates with his. So, yeah, these things are... It's a tangled web that's been woven. I'll go into that, I think, in a video tomorrow, in depth. yeah, in depth because it's a lot of moving parts. And I think my doggy wants to. I think you want to go out, don't you? All right, everybody. I don't think Gordon C. Right, I think I'm. That's it, everyone. I'm done. Make sure. Ellie, come here. Lie down. Lie down. Lie down. Make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, I haven't missed anything. Right, that's it, everyone. I'm done, I think, for tonight. Thank you very much for all of your support, as usual. Please keep it coming. I cannot do this without you, and I really appreciate it. Please make sure you write your letters to of support to Julian Assange. Please, make sure you keep emailing your letters. Keep the pressure on with the MPs and anybody in the public eye you think who you could get on board to support him. We've only got 3 months, so we've got to keep the pressure on. Keep persisting and keep resisting. The freedom of the press is at stake here. It really is that important. Thanks very much for all your support, everybody. From me and Ellie. Take care, everyone. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.